12 o'clock. Why don't we go ahead and begin?
Okay, thank you, Robin. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Minton, and I'm the owner and CEO of Chief Executive Boards International. And I want to thank you for taking some time today to join us for our webinar entitled Sales Mastery 2. Some of you may have attended our Sales Mastery 1 webinar conducted earlier this year, which is also located as a recording on our website for reference. So if you happen to miss that one, you can go back and view that one on our website. Really, the goal of today's webinar is really related to if you find your sales pipeline is a roller coaster ride, managing your sales team is really a complicated mystery, or your sales and marketing strategies aren't in sync, then this webinar is designed to show you how to develop and sort of manage a productive sales force to grow your business. Bear with me, I'm trying to advance the slide here. David, can I ask you to advance the slide? I'm not able to do that. Thank you. So, Chief Executive Boards, we are headquartered in Greenville, South Carolina, and we have an executive peer advisory boards in multiple cities throughout the United States, and I'll be your host today. I'd like to invite you to stay tuned for future webinars on our website, located at the bottom of this slide, where it says www.chiefexecutiveboards.com. You can go on to that link and look at our future webinars that we have lined up. Usually we host about one a month, but anyway, that'll give you an indicator. So before we dive straight into our main topic, though, you might be curious to learn more about CEBI. We're a boutique executive peer advisory service with local and national boards located throughout the eastern and Midwest states. And the purpose of CEBI is designed to help CEOs, presidents, and business owners to share ideas, experiences, and to avoid pitfalls and potholes that many have already experienced. We help you steer from reinventing the wheel within your own businesses, and essentially, it's where highly successful chief executives go to become more successful. Our members convene in face-to-face forums and receive unvarnished advice in a safe and confidential environment that's typically unavailable elsewhere. It's kind of like having your own personal think tank. As an example, as you'll notice on this slide here, we address what keeps you up at night. So it's items you don't have an opportunity to discuss with anyone else. You can avail of our local and national advisory board forums, attend educational summits, you gain access to other CEBI members, our libraries, workshops, and webinars. So from a housekeeping standpoint, you can post your questions in the dialog box to the right, and they'll be answered after the webinar session. I want to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and available for you to review on our website. So let's get started with our webinar, Sales Mastery 2. And in doing so, what I'd like to do is introduce our guest speaker, Mr. David Rippey. David participates as a Chief Executive Board's International Advisor. He was the founder and is current President and CEO of Trusted Advisors Guild and Celestial International, which is a strategic marketing, communications, and creative services firm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. His firm specializes in the development of strategic marketing and communications campaigns, and he's worked for such clients as IBM, Wendy's, Microsoft, and Sony. Today, you'll learn in the webinar, how to ensure your salespeople are the right fit for your company. What's the number one factor for sales success? How can you improve your sales force? What's the truth about salespeople and what they want? You'll learn how calculating sales prospect ratios and how critical that is. You'll also learn the two major obstacles to sales, some of the proven phone sales techniques, understanding B2B landscape, and how to pick low-hanging fruit for sales. And last but not least, David will also go over some of the common negotiation mistakes. So as a reminder, this webinar is scheduled for 45 minutes, and at the end we'll take a few minutes for questions. Our contact details will be listed at the end of the presentation if you'd like to follow up. And at this point, I'd like to turn the webinar over to our featured presenter, Mr. David Rippey. David?
Hey, thanks, Kevin. So you can see on the screen the quote by Leonardo da Vinci: "I've been impressed with the urgency of doing. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Being willing is not enough, we must do." And that's any strategy, a sales strategy or sales plan, the key to its success is in the execution. And we have to do what we say we will, both as sales managers, if you happen to be a sales manager or running a sales department, and as salespeople. It's very important that we do what we say we're going to do. The question, it's a trick question, is sales an art or a science? Well, it's really both. Sales is an art and a science, and if done right, it's also a system. If you want to succeed, you need a system, and there are multiple components to that system. We discussed some of that in a CE Value workshop a couple years back, and also a lot of it in the Sales Mastery 1 webinar that you can go to the archive and find. So what happens in a lot of organizations is we create this overly complex process that really makes it hard for people to get anywhere. They're just overwhelmed by what they're supposed to do. So in our desire to generate sales, or in our frustration due to lack of sales, or through the simple process of time, we create a system that's convoluted and too complex. As again, it makes it hard for salespeople to be effective. So be vigilant to keep things simple. Today's agenda, Kevin went over this a little bit: sales team fit, prospecting, some sales tools, and then some negotiations. So hiring the right sales team. The first thing you need to do to hire the right sales team is you have to understand your model, which is not on the slide. You have to determine, what your sales model is going to be. Is it outward bound? Is it inside sales? Is it B2B, B2C? And then you have to know what you want your sales culture to be. The wrong fit for your salesperson, for salespeople, can spell disaster for your customers, your sales, and your firm. It wastes a lot of valuable time, a lot of resources, creates a false sense of progress, and hinders growth. I'm sure almost everyone on this call, on this webinar, has had a salesperson that they hired with great expectations and then found out that the person really did not fit into the culture, probably offended customers and so forth. So it's important to get that culture right. Here's threw in a little humorous slide. A customer or a prospect and a guy trying to sell to him. You're a pretty good sales rep, except for the 9 times you called me Wallet instead of Walter. So you don't want to be perceived, the point of that slide is, you don't want to be perceived as somebody, as a company that's just about the money. So how do you know if there's a strong job fit? First of all, you have to identify the high value roles for focus, whether that's sales, sales engineering, customer service, and then uncover the secret sauce of success. So you study the skills, the background, and behavior of the top 10% of your performers. You translate this into assessments and tools for managers. So you look at your top 10%, what do they do, what makes them successful? You document those success behaviors, translate that into how you measure the rest of the sales force, how the manager's going to do that. Then when you're hiring, you evaluate candidates and incumbents carefully for the fit. And then those managers, it's their responsibility to coach to that fit. So maybe somebody doesn't fit right now, but that doesn't mean they couldn't if they had the right training, were given the right tools, and given the right time. So how do you tell if your sales force is aligned? If they're aligned to the company goals? Well, you're misaligned if you regularly miss your sales goals, if you have sporadically reported sales activities, you have trouble motivating your sales force. Those are real bright, clear indicators that you're not aligned. Your sales team is not aligned. You can tell when you are aligned when you have a highly engaged sales team. You can attract top clients. We have a pipeline that is full of A and B accounts. When you start getting a lot of referrals, and then when you have the ability to keep your top talent and also to attract new high-level talent. So in the psychology of sales, what is the number one factor for sales success? And this will surprise some, but be obvious to many. The number one sales factor is confidence. Confidence comes from a person's self-concept. Self-concept determines the way you dress, the way one makes money, the car a person drives, and the effort that is put in. Salespeople need to believe in themselves, and browbeating or micromanaging them is counterproductive. But you can't really teach confidence. Now, you can help with some role play and things like that, but if a person is a wallflower or bashful or afraid to engage in conversation, he or she really is not going to succeed. So if you have people in sales roles who are really timid, then the chances are they are never going to succeed for your company. So either they need to figure out how to find their own self-confidence and to improve their self-esteem and their self-concept, or you need to ask them to move into a different role. Excuse me. That's either a different role, either inside the company or outside the company. So ways to improve your sales force. Your sales force. The top 20% of your salespeople are top people because they have a tendency to embrace knowledge and know-how. They're people who learn, they grow, they change, and they get better. The bottom 20% of your salespeople are not at the bottom 20% on purpose. They didn't come in with the idea of, I'm going to do a bad job. They need help. Therefore, you need to evaluate their needs and their desire and their commitment for improvement. Now, when it comes to their desire, if somebody doesn't have the will or the strength or the initiative to better themselves, then no amount of training is going to help. So you really have to look at that person's desire and determine if they're really right for that role. The middle 60% of your bell curve is your biggest challenge. They're not at the top, and they're okay with that. You hear the phrase, at least I'm not at the bottom. They feel safe in the middle, and nothing changes until you change something to get them to move. So what you need to do is identify, again, you go back to the top 10%, you say, what are those behaviors, and and therefore you take those behaviors and you start training them on how to become part of the top 10 to 20%. So I realize we just went over that section pretty fast. This is part of a two-day workshop, and we had covered a lot of this off in the previous webinar. We're going to go into sales prospecting real briefly here. And basically, sales is a numbers game. X number of calls equals Y number of appointments, which will get you Z number of proposals, which equals some number of new customers. However, the quality of the suspects is much more important than the quantity of the calls. So quality is much more important than quantity. I once worked with a client in Manhattan who had a person on the phone, and that person's quota was 100 calls a day. And that person would do 100 calls a day in and day out, and never got any appointments. And that's because they were measuring the wrong thing. They were going after, as soon as he got his 100 calls, he felt like he achieved what he wanted to achieve. And but that wasn't the goal. The goal wasn't to make 100 calls. The goal was to get appointments. So quality is much more important than quantity. So like all things in any industry, there's There's a science and an art to prospecting. A lead or a suspect is someone you haven't spoken to. A prospect is confirmed an interest in your offering, and an opportunity/customer is the person who is ready to buy. So generally speaking, it's a 100-to-1 ratio. You need 100 leads to get 10 prospects to get 1 customer, or in this case, 1,000 leads, 100 prospects, 10 customers. However, it changes based on whether they're just blind cold leads that you're getting from a mailing list or whether they're warm leads or referrals. Referrals, where somebody is specifically saying, call this gentleman at this organization, or call the senior VP at this company, she'll be receptive, and I'll call her for you. A warm lead or a referral is going to go a lot further than, just prospecting cold. A lot of companies miss this point, and this is one of the most important slides in this presentation. A lot of companies don't have enough prospecting going on to yield the number of opportunities that, they actually need in order to fill their sales pipeline based on what their sales quota is. So it's a simple formula. It's a 6-step formula. You gauge your sales activity for 1 to 2 months. And the way you look at that is if 100 people are contacted, how many prospects result? And then how many of those prospects turn into hot leads? And then how many of those hot leads turn into sales? So you divide the number of sales by 100 to get your ratio. And then what is your yearly goal in sales dollars? And then what are the projected sales total in current customers? So what do you already have in the pipeline? The difference is the sales dollars needed. And when you say what are the projected sales total in current customers, a lot of companies have recurring revenue, so you don't need to obviously prospect them. They're already customers. You already have a pipeline that's full, or not full, but they're already in the pipeline, and the revenue is pretty much in the bag. So that difference between current customers and pipeline is sales dollars needed. So in step 5, you enter the dollar amount of an average sale. You divide the average sale into the sales dollars needed. So then, if your average deal is $20,000 and you need $2 million, you divide $20,000 into $2 million. That's how many deals you need. Then you take the ratio in number 3 and you divide it into the sales needed. Now, as Kevin mentioned at the top of the hour, this webinar is being recorded, so when you go back through it, you can go back through it and focus in on this page and do some calculations. It'll open your eyes. It's really quite important that you understand just how many prospects you need to go through to get to the right revenue stream that you're looking for. It's also very important to realize that not all companies are created equal. Salespeople often waste a lot of time going after small accounts, and I can tell you from experience, small accounts take as much time as bigger accounts, but they can never yield the results you need. There's a direct correlation between the time and value a sales rep spends on an account and the success a salesperson experiences. So because there's a limited amount of time, your salespeople need to go after accounts that are of higher value. So it's always better to go after big fish rather than minnows. And trust me, it doesn't seem like it, but sometimes the smaller accounts take more time and effort and more of a pain than the larger accounts. So whenever possible, go after the big fish rather than minnows. We're going to move to 2 major obstacles to sales. And if you were participants in the first webinar a few months back, these slides will look familiar, but they're important. So there are 2 major obstacles to sales, and most people miss this. The first major obstacle is in the mind of the customer or prospect, and that is fear of failure. The customer that you're selling to does not want to make a mistake. They are afraid of paying too much. They're afraid of buying the wrong product or service. They don't want to experience criticism by their superiors for making the wrong decision. They're concerned that the product won't do as promised, won't work as promised, and they're concerned that the service won't be there. So that's a major obstacle, and what you have to do, what your salespeople have to do, what your sales team has to do, is they have to sell with confidence. They have to sell that your solution, your services, your products are gonna make them look good, make the customer or prospect look good. So I can't understate, or excuse me, I can't overstate the fear factor in the mind of the customer and what you have to do to overcome that. Major obstacle to sales number 2 is fear of rejection on the part of the salesperson. The salesperson, you know, a lot of salespeople, they just are afraid to hear no. Yet 80% of sales calls end in no. So you need to be patient with your salespeople, but not too patient. You need to be, you need to give salespeople time so they can develop their confidence, so they can develop their competence, so they can increase their product knowledge, and so they can increase their resilience to handle rejection. So their product knowledge and their competence will increase their confidence and will increase their resilience to handle rejection. Once they realize that it's not about them, it's just your product or service or your price doesn't work for the prospect, then they don't take it personally, and then their self-esteem starts to grow, and so does their confidence. And then they become better salespeople. So this is a very interesting sales statistic, and it probably lies at the heart of why most salespeople don't succeed, or why most salespeople are average or below average. And these stats come from Columbia University. They did a massive survey, and what the survey revealed was the average salesperson sells only 1.5 hours a day. So you think the salesperson's out there selling for 8 hours a day, but no, that's not really true. The average salesperson doesn't make a sales call until 11 a.m. 80% of sales happen after the 5th attempt. So it's not just make a phone call or have a meeting and then either you have the opportunity or you don't. It takes at least 5 attempts for 80% of all sales to happen. Yet, only 10% of salespeople make 5 calls. And 50% of salespeople only make 1 call. So if you want to look at some factors that are potentially at the root cause of failure, of salesperson failure, these bullets are it. Salespeople procrastinate to avoid rejection. So they go make a cup of coffee, they chat at people at the water cooler, they make excuses, like a lot of people do for a lot of things, to avoid getting on the phone and getting rejected. So this is an important slide here. Now, when you're prospecting, the prospect wants to be sure of 5 things. 1 is that you have something important to communicate. 2, that you are talking to the right person. So if they aren't the person that you really need to speak with, they don't really want to talk to you because maybe it's not their decision-making authority, or really you need to be speaking to another department. They want to ensure that your visit's going to be short, that there's no obligation, and that you're not going to use high-pressure sales tactics. So those 5 things are important. That's not really necessarily the model that some companies use. They do use high-pressure sales tactics, and a lot of salespeople will just call on the wrong level and are talking to the wrong person, and everybody's time is wasted. So if you're going to do any kind of appointment setting, if you want to get in front of people and try and set appointments via the phone, then here is a little bit of script that you can put into action. You call, person rings, may I ask you a question. Would you like to hear a proven method whereby you can increase sales by 20 to 30% per year? So now, obviously, whatever that statistic is that you use in there has to be true for your product or service, and it's good to quantify it by a number. So would you like to increase sales by 20 to 30% a year? Can't lie, don't make it up. Look at your product set, look at your services, and figure out what the stat is that you can use. Then I just want 10 minutes of your time, and you can judge for yourself. Would tomorrow afternoon, next morning work for you? The customer says, call me next week. They're blowing you off. Don't accept it. They're not really interested in meeting. So push a little harder. I have my day planner right here. Is yours handy? Why don't we schedule it right now? Then repeat the date and time to which you just agreed. Be polite, firm, and friendly, and be sure to smile. Now, you say, well, if I'm talking to a person on the phone, why should I be sure to smile? Because you can tell if somebody is friendly or not. You can almost hear the smile through the phone. You can hear the cordiality or the formality through the phone. So make sure that your salespeople are polite, they're firm, they're friendly, and that they're smiling. Do not fall for the trap of trying to sell or describe your product on the phone. It won't work. And never mail or email information. When somebody says, can you just put it in the mail, the first thing that happens when that mail arrives is it goes into the trash bin or the recycle bin. When they say mail it or send me an email, they're really blowing you off. So don't do that. And always call and confirm the day before. You don't want to take time to have your salespeople go out there and find out the person forgot the appointment. So let's look at understanding your marketplace. If you're in the B2B marketplace, it's pretty important to understand how people are changing their buying behaviors. So engagement matters these days. 90% of buyers went with their supplier based on the fact that they had ample content. They had case studies, they had best practice data, they had white papers, they had ROI tools, they had vendor comparison analysis. So what they're looking for is the credibility that you have earned the right to do business with them, that other people, it's called the law of similar others, that other people have found your services and products to be worthwhile. That's why case studies and best practices and white papers and vendor comparisons are important. And then peer-to-peer is powerful. So, you know, there are a lot of groups out there online these days of like-minded people, whether that's mechanical engineers or hot air balloon enthusiasts. Peer-to-peer is very powerful. 60% of buyers share information with their peers. 40% of people that are purchasing follow discussion threads related to their job. And 37% have posted specific questions related to, should I do business with this company? Should I buy this product from this company? Is this product reliable? Is this service what they say it is? And then they expect seamless alignment between sales and marketing, and they want that to be transparent. So you can't have marketing materials say one thing and have your salespeople saying another thing. That won't work. And in today's environment, you have to sell on value instead of price. If you're selling on price, you're gonna lose a lot. Unless selling on price is your model, in which case you don't really need this webinar. You just go in and you sell on price. Sales are delayed or blocked by people suffering from attention scarcity. So there's a lot coming at us these days. You probably open your inbox when you get up in the morning or go to work in the morning and find 100, 150 emails in there, most of it's spam. So it takes our time to unclutter that. So people are suffering from attention scarcity. There's a lot of fragmented media consumption. Sales organizations really don't communicate very well. Prospects are tuning out right now. There's a lot of extraneous marketing fluff that has nothing to do with anything. And you want to make sure that you're not using too many cliches like robust and leading edge and best of breed. People tune out. They tune out very rapidly when they start seeing words that are disingenuous. So B2B sales is really knowledge work. You have to understand product, service, and service. You have to understand your own products and services, and you have to understand what the customer. So before I would ever go on any sales call, I would recommend that your salespeople go online, they research who they're calling on, they understand the company in detail, they understand the kinds of groups that they belong to, and that make sure that your salespeople speak to the issues that matter to the customer rather than the issues that matter to you. One way you do that is you implement sales playbooks. So if you don't have sales playbooks based on industry or based on product set, it's very important that you put those together. IDC reported that 50% of salespeople are not prepared for their initial meeting, which can lead to sales disaster. If you go into a meeting and you're not prepared for what the client or prospect is going to ask, then you don't have answers and you look bad, and you only get one chance to make a good first impression, so you lose the opportunity if you're not prepared. And that happens in 50% of the initial meetings. The sales playbooks are recommended for different selling situations. So you can have a sales playbook around your processes. You can have situational content and selling scenarios. You can have playbooks on your sales tools, or excuse me, your tools. You can have sales playbooks with coaching and messaging. And you can have a sales playbook that contains, answers to tough questions for tough prospects. so that your salespeople are armed. You want to provide consistent messaging through your sales playbook, and you want to allow for faster advancement and winning of deals. So this will shorten your sales cycle. If you have sales playbooks, really just invest in getting a good copywriter who can come in, ask the right questions, document this, or if you have a marketing department, have them do it. And you will rapidly decrease your sales cycle. So your sales cycle will shorten dramatically, and you'll increase productivity. So we're gonna change here over to another thing that you can implement very, very easily. And we're going to start with the premise that it's 7 times harder to find new clients than to maintain existing ones. Clients think of your firm based on the first reason they started doing business with you. I've had this happen to me personally. So if you go in and they buy a bunch of widgets from you, even though that might be a very minor thing that you sell, but they were in a jam and they needed some widgets, then they will think of you as the widget company. So most salespeople are just happy to get whatever they can in terms of the order. So they don't sell or present the depth and breadth of your findings. And this is a major opportunity lost. And most companies, I would say, if not all companies, are leaving money on the table. So it's 7 times harder to find a new client, and I guarantee your sales reps aren't really doing your company justice. So how do you overcome that premise? Well, the answer is to pick the low-hanging fruit. Identify the top 20% of your clients, review each account, review who the key contact plus senior decision makers are, their purchasing history, their product and service offerings, their corporate culture, their latest news and any industry news and trends. And then create a theme for your initiative based on one or more. The primary impression you want to make, the main product line or services set that you want to promote, a tagline, a clever tagline to go with it, your strategic competitive advantage, and your reason to believe. Now, in a previous webinar, we talked about how to develop your strategic competitive advantage and your reason to believe. We can't go into that because of time today, but understanding your strategic competitive advantage is important. Most companies do not understand their strategic competitive advantage, and they do not promote their reason to believe. So once you identify your low-hanging fruit, spend some time creating a theme and make sure that you have your messaging very tight. And don't be afraid to spend money on your clients. Identify some sort of promotional, a quality 3D item that highlights your theme. Work with your salespeople to set joint sales calls, either at the client's office or a nice restaurant. Or if you have really great facilities, invite them to visit you, although that's a little harder to accomplish. Get the account rep and the top executives to call on the top 20 clients. Set a goal of 30 accounts in 90 days. And then outline your entire presentation. Ask about their business issues and their pain points. Find out how they're doing. How are you doing as a supplier? And keep in mind, these are the companies that you already do business with. Find the entry point, the intersection of their business issues and your product set, and then segue into a mini presentation of your products and services that you feel apply. Now, I've done this dozens and dozens of times in companies, and it has never failed to work. It always has yielded a lot of revenue for my clients, and it will work for you. You just have to believe in it and stay the course. So when you're in front of the client, ask for opportunities to quote on projects, and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know you did that. Oh, I didn't know you did this other thing. Yeah, we'd like to learn more about that." And then and quote on them. Invite your clients to tour your offices or facilities. Make sure you don't overschedule meetings. You don't want these things to overlap. Never allow your sales reps to fly solo. Always have some sort of manager or senior executive with them. The key here is to ensure that there's a quality and a consistency to the presentation, and don't leave it to your salesperson to do that. Allow ample time for proposal preparation. So if you're in a meeting on Monday, don't say, "Oh yeah, we'll have that to you on Wednesday," when you don't have the ability to do that. Make sure that you allow ample time to prepare a proposal to go back. And don't overcommit. And then lastly, don't take too much business. Be very careful not to take too much business and say, "Well, I would really love to have that problem." well, you guarantee you will have that problem if you go after, if you with the right campaign and the right focus, you will gen up a lot of revenue, a lot of opportunity, and you will pick that low-hanging fruit and have a lot of revenue sitting there. So let's just quickly move to 4 buying influences. Most people on this call are probably familiar with Miller-Heiman. If you're not, or even if you are, go out and get this book. So there's 4 buying influences. There's the economic buyer, which is ROI focused. There's the user buyer, which is, okay, how's this going to better his or her job? There's the technical buyer, who is really the gatekeeper, screens based on a technical basis. It's very hard to get beyond that person. And then there's the coach, who guides you to other buyers. And really, the coach is a good place to be. And then that coach also feeds your information on your position with each person. So it tells you exactly how to go after the business. So here are some of the further characteristics of an economic buyer. They want low cost of ownership, they want a good budget fit, they want ROI, financially responsible, productivity increase, profitability, consistent cash flow, and flexibility. Those are the things that they're interested in. And what that tells you, though, is that you need to ask those kinds of questions in the initial meeting, so that you're picking up on the things that are most important to them, because not all of these bullets are going to be important to them. So you have to pick up which ones are, and that then informs what you do in your proposal. Then there's the technical buyer, and you need to present specs that meet or exceeds their expectation. They're interested in timely delivery, best technical solution. They're interested in discounts, low bid and price, and then reliability. And the user buyer is someone who is interested in reliability. They want it to be easy to learn and use, increased efficiency, versatility, great service, fulfills your performance requirements, or fulfills their performance requirements, and does a job better, faster, cheaper. And the coach, they just want to win. They just want to be recognized as the person who brought you into the company. So recognition is important, visibility is important, stroking their ego is important. They want to be seen as a contributor, and they want to be seen as a problem solver. So, understanding the reasons that buyers buy is important. So go out and get that book. Go back once. Oops. Yeah, just go out and get the book by Miller-Heiman. You can get it off Amazon. And then also, let's say you've done all these other things. You've identified the low-hanging fruit. You got your sales people out there prospecting. They're getting appointments. But you have to make sure that the man is present. The man stands for money, authority, and need. If the salesperson is afraid to ask about budget, or if the person they're talking to says, I don't have any budget authority, that deal is going nowhere, and the salesperson is experiencing happy years. If the person they're talking to is not the decision maker, that deal is not moving forward, or it will be long delayed until you can get in front of the decision maker. And then make sure there's a need. Is this a real problem that must be solved, or is it just a nice to have? Is it something that they're considering, or is it something that this project probably make me look good, but it's not something that's actually an imperative for the company? So make sure the man is present. So money, authority, and need. Most salespeople, a lot of salespeople, I shouldn't say most, a lot of salespeople are afraid to ask the money question. They delude themselves that they're talking to the decision maker, and they never find out if it's actually a real initiative. So that spells doom in a sales scenario. And you can avoid those traps just by making sure the man is present. We're going to move on quickly here to some basic rules of negotiation. So I learned this a long, long, long time ago, which is always be prepared to walk away. So if the deal isn't favorable on your terms, don't give in and just do it unless it's something that unless you're prepared to take the hit. But always be prepared to walk away. If the terms become odious, then don't do it. Name your price and conditions first. And the reason you want to do that is if you say this is worth $10,000, that becomes the anchor point, and all negotiations revolve around that $10,000. Don't be in a hurry. Always defer to a higher authority. So don't let your ego get in the way and say, well, I'm the final decision maker here. Always make sure that you defer to a higher authority. So, well, let me take that back to my board, or let me take that back to my VP or my CEO. Don't just say yes on the spot. Some negotiating mistakes: viewing negotiation as a fixed pie, as if it's just this fixed thing and there's no room for negotiation. Underestimating your own authority, your own ability and strengths. Going on a power trip, don't let your ego get in the way. It's also a negotiation mistake to assume that you know what the opposition wants. They have to tell you what they want. Another mistake is not knowing exactly what you want. No, you have to know what your upper end is, and you have to know what your lower end is. Another problem is overestimating your opponent's knowledge of your weaknesses. In other words, you feel insecure because you think that they know what your weaknesses are. Don't become intimidated by your opponent's prestige, their rank, their title, or educational accomplishments, or the fact that they might be working for a ginormous company. Just because the company is a Fortune 100 company doesn't mean anything. The deal has to be right for you. So don't become intimidated by those things, those entrapments. And then don't be overly influenced by traditions or precedents or statistics or forecasts or cultural icons and taboos. So aim high. If you're going to give a concession, get something in return. Make sure that you're talking a lot less and you're listening a lot more than they are. Whenever possible, make it win-win. Stay detached. Don't let your emotion get involved. Don't compete with the customer. Know when to take yes for an answer, so stop. Know when to stop and take yes for an answer. And then once you've agreed, don't go back and then say, yeah, I bet we could have got this out of them. Don't go and change the demands at the last minute. That's a sure way to lose a deal there. So I know I breezed through this very quickly. I'll give you a real fast summary here. So sales is an art, a science, and a system. Make sure that your salespeople are a fit and aligned to your goals. It's your company. It's your sales revenue. So make sure that your salespeople are aligned to your goals, not to their goals. Sales is a numbers game that starts with prospecting and effective lead generation. It's better to go after big fish rather than minnows. Always remember there are two obstacles to sales: fear of failure by the customer and fear of rejection by the salesperson. So it's a psychological issue, and you can work on both of those with the right materials. Don't allow your salespeople to procrastinate. 80% of all sales happen after the 5th attempt. So make sure that your salespeople are diligent and proactive and they stay the course. And then prospect wants to be sure of 5 things, which we talked about. You can go back and review those later. Understand the B2B landscape and develop. If you don't have those tools already, make sure you develop those tools and you provide those tools to your sales force so that your customers can get them. And go after low-hanging fruit. There is always money left on the table. I've just seen it over and over and over again. There's a significant amount of money left on the table with your existing customer base. But you have to go after it with a creative program and with a senior manager along with your salesperson. Understand and master the rules of negotiation. And then lastly, always be prepared to walk away. Don't get yourself in the middle of a bad deal that you'll regret later. So with that, we have some time for questions. Sorry if I was ran through that too fast, but we did make it to the 45-minute mark, so that's not bad. So do we have any questions?
David, we have a few. The first one I have is from Thomas, and he wants to know, how do you help your salespeople get over their fear of rejection?
Well, the number one thing that you can do to get a salesperson over a fear of rejection, there's 2 things. One is give them a sales playbook, script it out, and then role play it. So with the salespeople, well, with anybody, if you repeat something 17 times, it takes about 17 times of saying something, and then you assimilate it into your system. So if salespeople practice that, and the best way to do that is to role play, they will become very, very comfortable.
Okay. Next question is from Lacey. And she asked, what do you do when you realize someone is not the right fit for the sales role?
Well, I tend to want to give people the benefit of the doubt. So if you realize they're not the right fit, then I try to give them the right training, the right tools, and then a period of time in which they can work it out. So a lot of times you call that putting people on a plan, and you might say, okay, you have 30 days to turn this around, and here are the tools, and here's how I'm going to give you guidance. And you look at, you coach them. Now, if it's just blatantly obvious they're not going to work, then you just make that hard decision. You swallow hard and you make that decision and you let them go. But I believe in trying to give people training tools and time, but not too much time.
Sure. Okay, and the last question, David, is from Daniel. He asks, how do you bring your team back into alignment, your sales team back into alignment?
Well, first thing I would do is I would have weekly sales meetings. If you're not already having sales meetings, I would schedule a weekly sales meeting. I would have an agenda in which everybody is meant to come with, here's where they are against quota, here are the here's the top 5 opportunities they have, here's the obstacles, here's the help they need, and I would create a series of 100-yard dashes week to week, and I would hold them accountable for coming to those meetings prepared. And if you can do that, if you can get people on that sales rhythm of those weekly meetings, you'll start to get them in alignment, or they'll select themselves out of the company.
Okay, great. Well, that is all the questions we have. Thank you so much, David. Kevin, I think we'll turn this back over to you now.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, David. That really concludes our presentation. I'd like to remind you that this is being recorded, and we will send it out in the form of a web link via email to you. The webinar that you've seen today was hosted by Chief Executive Boards International, and I want to invite you to visit our website for additional insights and some of our upcoming events, such as the webcast that you see listed on this slide. So we do try to do these on a monthly basis, but sometimes we have to skip a month in between for actually conducting board meetings. But these are some of the upcoming webcasts that we have on the table in the future. So I'd like to thank our presenter, David Rippey, today, and I hope that you found this information to be helpful. I want to invite you to contact Chief Executive Boards with any questions, and please feel free to join us for any future webinars. So we look forward to speaking with you regarding future engagements with Chief Executive Boards and Celestia, and I wish all of you a great week ahead. So thank you and farewell. This concludes our webinar.